Hello and welcome to Long Beach Lens. I'm your host, Derek J. Simpson, Executive Director of the Long Beach Community Action Partnership. Our first guest is the Executive Director of We Are the Next. Please join me in welcoming Katie Rispoli Keaotamai. Welcome.
Thank you. Hey, Derek. It's great being here with you.
Yes, always. So, We Are the Next. For those who don't know what you're all about, can you share your mission and how long you've been around doing what you do?
Sure. So We Are the Next is a nonprofit organization. We're based in downtown Long Beach right now. We service the greater Long Beach region. And our mission is to empower the next generation to engage with their city so their neighborhoods can thrive. So we provide programming for teens and young adults that help them develop a relationship with the city and the community they live in so they can become stewards and caretakers for those communities into adulthood.
So, how do you identify those students and what are the ages that we're talking about?
We kind of focus on working with students ages 12 to 24, so we try to keep it within that bracket, and our programming takes place in centers where there are already students, so it might be something like Long Beach Community Action Partnerships after school programs, the YMCA after school programs, Boys and Girls Clubs of Long Beach, places that already have students who are interested in participating. Sometimes it's even a club that forms at a high school that gathers after school where we go to work with students in the club. It's not always with a formal organization, but we try to work where students are already there so we can be effective and bring our skills to them.
Now, what's your background that brought you into this? Because I don't think it's necessarily related, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of unconventional. I've sort of found my way here.
Okay.
And I came here through a variety of different pathways. So I started in Long Beach as a student at Cal State Long Beach and just really found the neighborhood and the city sort of magnetic and got kind of caught in here. And I found the neighborhood of Retro Row over on 4th Street and was really interested in it. And so I contacted them to ask if they needed some help, and they offered me an internship position doing some research on the buildings there because I was an art history major. So they thought, maybe this woman's interested in history. Right. And that sort of led me to construction on older buildings. Once I started finding out more about the architecture and the history, I got really interested in that and ended up working for a company called J.R. Van Dyce that does improvements on historic buildings in Long Beach. So I worked on projects like the Psychic Temple on Broadway and the Edison Lofts on Long Beach Boulevard when I was working for them. But as much as I really loved the work and the construction side, what I actually found interesting was how people interacted with those buildings after they were improved. I wanted to see more people build strong relationships with these places that told stories. There were historic sites and were meaningful sites of all different kinds, sites that told complicated stories of discrimination, as well as sites that told great stories of how Long Beach was built. So I started an organization that could allow me to help the next generation do that. So we weren't always trying to save historic buildings after they'd sat vacant for decades. Instead, we could be building the next generation of people who would care about them and maintain them and tell their stories so that they didn't become vacant in the first place.
No, and with that in mind, then you try to engage youth with that same understanding and that appreciation for these buildings and structures?
Yeah, we definitely talk about architecture and the built environment, all the things around us that are constructed, but we also talk about natural areas and environmental areas in the city and in our communities and try to build relationships with those places. And sometimes we're talking more just about events and stories more than we are about a specific place. But we try to keep everything we do with the students themed around history and the history of humans in Long Beach and our surroundings, and with sites that tell the stories of those people. So sometimes it means focusing on the architecture of a building, but sometimes it just means telling the story of something that happened on a site.
Now, is your service area for We Are the Next just the greater Long Beach area or Long Beach city limits? If I'm a youth, where am I living that I would be able to access your programs?
So we try to work with every city that surrounds Long Beach and the city itself. So we work mostly with Long Beach and Wilmington right now, but we are also looking to bring our programming to students in Carson, Compton, Lakewood, Paramount, and Bellflower. So that's kind of our niche there. We really want to be servicing the main city of Long Beach and its surrounding areas.
Now, you're a nonprofit, so that means you have a board of directors. You're a founder of We Are the Next.
Yes.
What is your board composition? Is it basically people who have an interest in history or in architecture, or is it just random people that support your cause?
It's kind of come together over time. Okay. Everyone who's on our board right now is a resident of the city of Long Beach, except one board member who lives in Watts. And they're all people who have really expressed an interest in what we're doing for one reason or another. So we have someone who's a teacher, who's an educator, who's interested in helping students build relationships and be more invested in doing community service work. We have a resident of a historic district in Long Beach who's really interested in telling the story of the buildings in that community. We have an immigration law clerk who's finishing up her JD right now and going into immigration law, who's interested in telling the story of more diverse communities, and she's actually the president of our board. So we have a pretty differentiated base of people who have come on to help lead this organization and make sure we voice the real voices of those who we service. So we try to make sure everyone's represented.
Now, speaking of representation, when you talk about program design, one of the things I read in researching about you is that you actually are a youth-oriented organization that engages youth in the design of your programming, which isn't necessarily always the case. Adults tend to think that we know what's best, as opposed to, as they would say in design thinking, having empathy with the person that you're trying to serve and then building it out from there. Can you share how that process goes with the youth being involved in the program design? Yeah,
definitely. So, I mean, I've always kind of been on the younger side in the rooms where I'm in the meetings, and as you can tell, I'm a younger person still. That won't always be the case.
Don't let the gray hair fool you. I'm not ancient now. Come on.
So that won't be the case forever, but one thing that I always felt was consistent, and part of the reason why I started We Are the Next, is I always felt like people were making decisions for me. And I felt like I wanted to be able to make decisions for myself without people telling me, oh, you're too young, you don't know what you want yet, or we know what you should be learning about. So we decided that at this point in time, with our current political climate and with the nature of youth these days being so technologically capable and willing to learn, we should really leave it up to them to learn how to decide how they're going to learn and what they're going to learn. So we created a youth council. So we have this youth advisory council, which is comprised of current students who live in our service area. And we have right now 5 students, but we're looking for more if anyone's interested in joining us, who meet with us every other month. And they do test pilots of our programs, and they help design new programs for We Are the Next. So all of our programming is designed with our staff from a youth perspective, so we can make sure that every program that we carry out is engaging for the students who participate in it. They find it interesting, and it's relatable, so they actually want to be learning what they're learning, and they're committed to participating and getting something out of the program.
So as we're running shorter on time, give us a quick example. We're talking about programs. Give us an example of a program and what happens in that program and a success story from that.
Yeah, so we actually had this great program last summer called Youth Heritage Summit California. It was actually a 4-day retreat where we brought high school students from our service area to Cesar Chavez National Monument, which is actually in the Central Valley. It's in Keene. And we brought them there for 4 days to learn the story of California's farm worker movement and to understand how farm workers in our state play a role in how we live our lives every day. And that was very meaningful. We got to work with the Chavez family and have all of Cesar's children join us and work with us and meet our students and lead them. And our students, they went into this program with designed activities that were going to keep them captivated, and they basically were brought to a number of sites where they learned the history of the movement, and then were tasked with interpreting what they learned into an actual product. So some of the students decided they wanted to do social media. So they made social media posts and content that's going to go out on the monument's Facebook feeds and Instagram, Snapchat, all from their perspective. Some of them did graphic design, some of them did actual mapping projects using new technologies. So they each got to pick what they wanted to do. One of the students, Astrid, who went on that trip, is actually now on our Youth Advisory Council.
Oh, cool.
And she actually went on to found a club on campus at Millikan High School here in the community called La Raza, which is a club of students who are of all different backgrounds who gather to do community service projects to support the Latino community and to tell the history of Latino heritage in Long Beach and the surrounding surrounding area. So she's definitely, I think, a success story of ours these days.
Great. How can the community that's watching, they're hearing this, they're excited about what you do, proud of what you do, how can the community get involved to help support We Are the Next success?
One of the best things the community can do right now is support our work by keeping track of what we're up to and by responding when we ask for their support. So we really encourage people to follow us on social media sites like Facebook, just searching for We Are the Next, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, because when we're seeking support at the end of the year for financial donations, everything like that, that's where we post it, and that's the best way to stay up to date. We also have a newsletter they can sign up for on our website that keeps them up to date with volunteer opportunities, upcoming events. So we always have events in the community that are not just for students, but for other people as well to attend. Sometimes we charge small, ticket fees to go to those, and all of the proceeds from those events go to We Are the Next. So the things that they can do is follow us, keep tabs, and like our posts, and then also keep track when we have upcoming events. Try to attend or try to make a donation when we ask for their support for our programming.
Real quickly, elevator pitch that talks about your vision going forward for We Are the Next.
Yeah, I think my vision for We Are the Next is to make an organization that goes so far beyond just buildings, right? It's an organization that builds the next generation of Long Beach residents, because statistically, most of the high school students in our community right now are going to live here the rest of their lives. So for them, it's important that we train them and inspire them to become the caretakers of our city, because they're going to be, whether or not we invest in them now. So if we can help them really love this community, want to give back to this community, want to start a small business in this community, and be proud of its complicated history as they enter adulthood, then we're doing all of ourselves a favor, and that's our philosophy at We Are the Next.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of time.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we will be meeting with Melissa Strasser of the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for staying tuned for more of Long Beach Lens.
As a 19-year-old, I've personally witnessed too many lives ruined and lost due to gang violence. Families devastated due to early deaths, youth spend the majority of their lives in jail, serious injuries such as flesh wounds, brain damage, and even paralysis. All these things can be avoided and lives can be spared. Your life is worth more than the neighborhood. You have a choice. Be a leader, not a follower.
Hi, I'm Deborah. Are you tired of coming home to an empty, lonely house? Why not try Animal Match Rescue Team? We are a small dog rescue group in Long Beach. AMRT is looking for loving homes and has a variety of small dogs to choose from. Just come to Petco, 6500 PCH any weekend from 11 to 2 to see just a few of our little dogs. To find out how you could adopt, foster, volunteer, or donate, go to amrt.net. 100% of all proceeds go to our animals. Right, Pearl? You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back. I'm Derek J. Simpson. Our next guest is a supervising librarian at the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library. Please join me in welcoming Melissa Strasser.
Hello.
Great to see you again.
Always good to see you.
Yes. So the crown jewel of the 9th District, as I've said before, and I'm sure our Vice Mayor would agree, is the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library, and you are the person who makes it happen over there.
Yeah.
That's got to be a great job for you. But for those who haven't been yet, describe the library for us.
My favorite thing to say about it is that it's dynamic.
Okay.
We are not a traditional library. We are a community hub that is working to both set the standard for library services and for redevelopment in the 9th District. So we're vibrant and noisy and doing lots of stuff. And we're also, it's a beautiful library.
It's very beautiful, and you say you're not the traditional, so I mean, you don't just go and check out books, but the one story I've heard the Vice Mayor say is that in the first 100 days or so, how many books were checked out?
The first 100 days, well, for Rex's challenge, for the Read with Rex challenge, we did the first 3 months, and we checked out 50,000 books. The first was 15,000. That was our first goal, and we blew that away in about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then we bumped it up to 25,000, and we got to that in the middle to end of October. And then by the December 19th deadline that we actually had, we were up to 56,000 books.
So put that in perspective. Is how unusual is that, if at all?
Well, actually, the most interesting part about it is the fact that the North Branch serves about anywhere between 90,000 and 105,000 people, depending on what communities you include.
Right.
So we used to be doing that out of a 6,800 square foot building, which is very tiny. And so now we've built this big thing. We've built this 26,000 square foot library, beautiful, dynamic, like I said. And we used to have the lowest readership in the city, right? 90,000 people with the lowest readership. Now we're really making a change in that. We're really affecting the way that people check out books. Seeing 50,000 books, it's a 500% increase over what used to check out at the North Branch. So there's a little bit of, if we build it, they will come. Right?
Okay. Now, speaking of building it and coming over, did you come from the previous library to this particular facility? Or did some of the staff or all of the staff, how did that work?
I personally did not exactly. I was working in California Heights at the Dana Library. Also a dynamic library. It's small, it's a 1,600 square foot building. It's a different community, right? But it was the same structure with five staff. The core components, the core staff members, Shiloh Moore, Vern Stevens, and a few others, all came directly from the North Library. But with a bigger building comes more staff. So really what happened was we took that little troop of people and we expanded it. We now have about 25 people on staff. So it's been a great challenge to learn how to run a big library, how to manage a staff that big, how to work together in a staff like that.
What makes it unique, if at all, among the other libraries, let's say in Long Beach or even in the state of California for that matter, other than its size possibly being unique?
Well, I think we have two really special features. One is the design. It's a beautiful, I'll just say over and over again how beautiful it is. But we are working toward LEED Silver certification. We're working toward green technology and using sustainable services so that we're being kind to the earth and to the place that we've taken over, right? So the design is one impact. You can see outside from 96% of the building, which is just a huge impact on what happens inside the building. And then the other part is we're trying to provide exceptional library services. The staff is amazing. We took the best and brightest from Long Beach and plugged them down into this little branch. And now we're working to really create community, to engage meaningfully, to build partnerships with North Long Beach. We've seen a lot of pride of ownership from the community, and that's translating in a really unique way to make it effective. We're seeing a lot of people come in and a lot of people using the library. And not that that's different than any library in California, because there are plenty of well-used libraries, but especially for North Long Beach, this is different.
So what might children, teens, or adults in those specific areas find? If I'm a child, or if I'm a teen, or if I'm an adult, when I walk in, what's going to be that wow factor for me, you think, if you were to look at it from their lens?
I think in general, I would say learning opportunities. You know, a lot of people think of books when they come into the library, right? But we have really varied kinds of learning opportunities. For children, we're really play-based. Play is just as important for children as is you know, learning and reading and kind of the 3 R's, if you will. Right. So we're really working at developing all kinds of literacy, right? Social literacy for teens. We have a big social space over there that teens can come in and use because that's important in adolescent development. For adults, we have empowerment opportunities. You can come in and do a resource night and learn how to get help from the community action partners. Right. You can learn how to get help from city services. You can learn how to use creative suite technology, right? Okay. So it's just different kinds of learning opportunities that I think interest the different groups.
Now, I've heard the term makerspace. I know we've had that at the main branch downtown, but you have a makerspace.
We do.
Describe that, and how would I, if I'm out there watching, how would I want to get involved in something like that?
So the uniqueness of our space, we call ours the Learning Lab. Okay. The studio at Main has been there for about 2 years. We've been offering these makerspace services through the library. Right. The Learning Lab at Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library is a little bit different because it was built as a space for, it was originally designed for homework help, a little bit more analog. Over the past few years, makerspaces have become more important. So we have filled this place with technology. We have 20 computers, 2 of them are Macs. We have 15 laptops. We have 3 3D printers, a full line of cutting apparatus that we can make stamps, we can make labels, we can make all kinds of stuff. And what's interesting about that is that you have, it's a dynamic space, it's unique because of that feature. A kid can walk in and try and get homework help for a math assignment, right? And they're sitting there and they're trying to do their math homework, but right behind them is a 3D printer that's probably going because we have a long queue. But so they turn around and they look and they say, well, what's that going on back there? And the next thing you know, you have somebody who recognizes that their math homework will somehow affect how do I do 3D printing? How do I design this thing? Oh, I can design this thing. I can make it myself. I can create my own solution. That's a really driving force. So we have a lot of kids. We're seeing about 500 to 600 visits a month in that space for homework help and for the technology part. So that's a good connection to make in this community.
It's interesting. You talk about 3D printers. I've seen recently on television that they've got this 3D printing of a house. They can make a house. And it's printing, it's actually pouring the concrete, and they can do it in a couple of days. And how it's going to revolutionize housing maybe in some third world countries, if not even in our own communities.
My favorite thing to say about our space is that we constantly have solutions that we need to come up with. And they're silly. We have a door that won't stay open. So we printed something to make the door stay open, right? Like that's kind of lame in the grand scheme of what 3D printers can do. But man, now our doors stay open.
Just the fact that you can do that, yeah, for sure. Space is no longer a problem compared to where you were before. I know I've attended a design thinking workshop there for like 3 hours in your smaller room, and then you have a larger community room. If I'm in the community and my organization wants to have a community meeting, is that accessible, or how does one go about that?
Well, what I can tell you is that we have 3 community rooms of varying size, small, medium, large, if you will. Okay. Our conference room seats about 14 people and is chock full of technology for presentations. Okay. Our medium classroom is medium, obviously, but it seats about 50 people, chock full of technology. And then our largest room can stand up to 256. 150 really is what fits in there. And booking it is easy. One of the most important things to this community when we were designing the building was that there would be community meeting space. So last week alone, I had 14 bookings in those 3 rooms. Wow. It's been a driving force in what we do. So to book it, you contact me, Melissa Strasser, at the library, and we can set up a date, and then there's a little bit of paperwork to do because it's a city entity.
And you have a website with all this information on it?
I do, www.lbpl.org.
Okay. Now, I know that you've talked about many things, but to you, being the librarian and just being a citizen that just appreciates the value of the library in the community, what impresses you most about it? What excites you most about it when you walk into that facility? Because it's more than just a facility. You mentioned the people and how dynamic they are. And clearly your enthusiasm is obvious, so they're very fortunate to have you as a leader there. But
thank you.
Put on the lens of a child or an adult walking in, what's going to impress them most about that?
Well, what impresses me the most is community support, honestly.
Okay.
From, like you said, Vice Mayor Rex Richardson will talk about the library as if it's the most amazing thing that's happened since sliced bread up here, right? He'll speak about it. Other city departments are talking about it in their meetings. We're hosting meetings for city departments. We're hosting we're hosting meetings for community businesses.
Right.
We have almost 100,000 visits in 6 months. Like just that number is really indicative of how much people needed this resource, first of all, like needed the space.
And you don't have to be a resident of the 9th District, right?
Not one bit.
To book it?
Nope, you can come from anywhere. We actually had somebody come in from our sister city in Croatia to come, and they were told by the mayor of their city specifically to come and see the Michelle Obama Neighborhood Library. So, so yes, it's impressive, the community support, the ways that people come in. We've checked out these 60,000 books. We've seen 100,000 visits. We have 3,000 people attending 600 programs, right? Just lots and lots of people coming in to see what we've got and to use it.
We have less than 2 minutes.
Okay.
If there's one thought that you would like to leave those who are watching with, what would that thought be? What would you want the viewing audience to know?
We're here to welcome you. That's probably the first thing I want people to know. You're going to walk in, and it's going to be different than any library that you've seen before. We have a great staff that are welcoming and open. We're a safe space to be connected after school or after work, and we're here to blow your mind. So there's that, right? If you have come to the library, thank you, and if you haven't, then you should totally check it out.
Thank you so much. It's just infectious to sit here and talk with you. The energy is great, so thanks for all that you do.
I love my job, so.
It's obvious, and we love that you love your job in this community. I'd like to thank Katie, Rispoli, Keaotamai, and Melissa Strasser for joining us on today's show. Be sure to follow PadNet TV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest updates. We also welcome your comments and thoughts regarding this show as we strive to make Long Beach Lens a favorite source of local news, information, and entertainment. This show has been brought to you with support from the Long Beach Community Action Partnership. Thank you for watching Long Beach Lens.